Mickey, what's the next game that we're looking forward to seeing the first week of the regular season? This is for reals. This isn't pretends.
Yes.
It counts.
Okay, answer. The Arizona Cardinals travel to St. Louis to take on the Rams. Yeehaw! NFC West matchup. Two teams that have, good Lord, I don't know. They've been probably looking forward to this because they were just glad that last season ended. And hopes are high on both sides. Let's start with the Rams. Last seen was Sam Bradford at quarterback. Now, one of the things we talked about in May is that they had their Steven Jackson, the longtime running back who was like a huge part of their offense. They traded him away in exchange for, what did they get, a bunch of draft picks and other proven players?
It wasn't, I know for sure it wasn't any players, Mickey, so every time I've heard about that trade, it had to have been for, you know, some trade picks, some money, and some bubblegum wrappers, something, you know.
Player to be named later.
No players. There was no player. I don't think there was any players in
draft
that trade.
picks would be named later.
Draft picks to be named later.
Yeah.
Some were revealed. Some probably weren't revealed. You notice a lot of NFL teams have been doing that lately for particular players. You know, we'll give you a third-round draft pick, and we'll give you an undisclosed, as they call it.
Yeah, and usually it depends on how well the player that's traded away performs in the first season, right?
Oh.
Well,
that adds a little more spin to it, which is quite interesting.
It means
no, really,
it makes sense from the point of view of both teams, really, because if the guy that's traded away has a fantastic, fabulous season, then he should be worth an earlier round draft pick than if he goes and gets injured or, you know, sort of stirs the dust up and doesn't do anything noteworthy that's good.
Well, it's more insurance for the franchise, obviously.
Yeah, right. It's a form of insurance.
What kind of game is this going to be? I mean, what do you see here?
I don't know, but hang on, that's sort of slowly coming back to me. One of these teams, and I think it was the Rams, had a huge problem being sacked last year, didn't they? Was Bradford running for his life most of the year?
You know, off the top of my head, you know, I paid particular attention to the Rams. And there's a stigma that I'm going to go into, a reason why they do have my attention because of you know, possibly the projections that I've made for them over the years. That's exactly what it is. And so and definitely the small time bets that I've made on them, so to speak, picking them to win week in and week out, they've kind of been my Achilles heel, if you will, for several years. It was not a very good year for Sam Bradford. Excuse me, from the point that you're talking about, and I think that's the primary reason they went down to Miami and they said, "Hey, can you folks down there that are soaking up the sun, would you be willing to trade Jake Long to us?" And Jake Long was a real proven offensive tackle, I believe. And they needed him to be protecting the line and to be protecting Bradford. So it makes a whole lot of sense that you know, there was a need there. There was a need there, and I think that's how they filled it. The Rams, the big speculation is what are they going to do on their running game, and in training camp, the reports that I keep hearing is that Coach Jeff Fisher has already made up his mind that he's going to rotate the 2 or 3 running backs that he has, which I think at least 2, if not all 3 of them are rookies. He wants to rotate them, and he thinks that's the best approach to take. As far as the receiving core, Danny Amendola, as I said, I mean, he was one of their staples. He ends up going to New England, and there was a report the other day that training camp was going very good. The coaching staff for the Patriots was more than happy with him, and they felt like he was looking good, and he was catching passes, and he was in good shape, and he should have a really good season. So this Tavon character from college, you follow college better than I do. Tavon Austin, is that his name? Does that sound familiar?
I don't know.
I think it's Tavon Austin. He's going to be wearing number 11 for the Rams, and he's going to be a starting receiver. And they drafted a couple of other receivers, and you know, it's kind of sketchy. It's kind of sketchy ground. it's going to be interesting, obviously, to see how they do, because the Rams are filling a lot of positions, and they're saying that they're fine with that, and that they have a good unit. They've got some players that can handle being in the first string. And I don't know. I got to go back to my original statement. I think Jeff Fisher's been beating around this league long enough as a coach that he ought to know somewhat what he's doing. And if he says these guys are ready to go, they're ready to go.
Well, we shall see. That's the beauty of that's why they play the games, right?
There you go.
That's what.
That's why they play the game.
Who is it? Tommy, the guy on ESPN, the longtime pro football
Chris
guy.
Berman?
Oh, there you go. Well, we'll call
that was a Chris Berman line.
Yeah. Well, that's who I was thinking of. Because he says that it seems like every week there's some team that's favored by 8.5 points or whatever, they get smoked, and so that's when he busts out that line. Well, the other thing, now I'm going back in recent NFL history, it's not that many years ago that the Cardinals were in the Super Bowl, right? And that was what the old former Rams quarterback, of course, the guy who was in the grocery store
bagging
groceries the year before.
He went from an apron to a jersey. Kurt Warner.
Yeah, Kurt Warner.
Good guy.
I know.
Good guy, was a good quarterback. Yes.
Hell of a guy. And now, so Carson Palmer, Cardinals quarterback, correct?
They're putting their money on Carson. That's correct,
right,
Mickey.
So
they decided he's going to be their starting quarterback.
Good. Well, you just put two things together. Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald. They're all pro, all world, all everything wide receiver.
All universe.
Who tore everything up. He just tore up the league, tore up the playoffs that year when they made the Super Bowl. If you have those two, and you've got a reasonable amount of pass protection from the offensive line and a halfway decent running game to kind of take away some attention from the blitzes and all that.
Yes.
I mean, those two can keep the team respectable, I think. I'm not mentioning defense yet. Obviously, it requires defense too, but they can keep the offense respectable. Larry Fitzgerald, in his prime, and I don't know that he's necessarily in his prime anymore, but in his prime, he was uncoverable, at least by by everybody. By everybody. He was uncoverable, and Kurt Warner got him the ball.
I give him props.
Now, this point spread here, it stood out to me as too high. Rams -6 at home over the Cardinals week 1. And in my opinion, the Rams are not good enough to be favored by 6 points against anybody. So I will take Cardinals +6. I don't know what their defense is like. It's obviously not in the top half. I don't think it's in the top half of the NFL, but I don't think it's in the bottom, 5 or 6 teams either.
I like the Rams a lot more than I do the Cardinals. I see the Rams as a mediocre team that could possibly be on the upswing. I see the Cardinals as a lower. I'm not trying to be cruel, but I mean I see them as a team that's definitely a bottom dweller in the NFL right now and has been for a while. And I have no idea where they're going to go from now, or where they're going to go from here as far as this season's concerned, and the players that they picked up. But I know for the last couple of years, it's been a slump. They've tried Kevin Cobb, and they paid all kinds of money for him for a quarterback. They tried Stephen Howlings, again, with 3 names. Stephen, these other guys, do you guys realize we're in our 40s here, okay? I barely can remember your first name, your last name, let alone 3 names, but Stephen King Howling, or whatever his name is, forgive me. Stephen Howlings, it's something like that. But they tried him on as a running back, and that didn't work out. And so, for lack of a better term, let's call it retreads. Because as I mentioned earlier, the important key positions there, they've got Rashard Mendenhall, who's supposed to be the power back, and he's supposed to be running the ball for them.
For the Rams?
They got him. Yeah, no, for the Cardinals. They got him from the Steelers.
That's one more reason I picked the Cardinals.
They got him for. You like him?
Certainly.
Okay.
Well, he's good.
All right.
He knows what he's doing.
So
he's got talent. So
they brought him in from Pittsburgh, and Larry Fitzgerald is still there. And I don't have to say a whole lot about Larry Fitzgerald. He's a very good receiver. In fact, he could probably end up being a great receiver. Carson Palmer, talk about a retread. I mean, he's gone from this team to that team to this team, and is he the answer? Is he the answer in Phoenix? No, I don't think he's the answer. They needed a starting quarterback the way I look at it, and they looked at who was available, and they went, well, we can afford this guy, and, these guys are willing to give him up, and Is he really who we want? No, but it's the best we can do. But we're going to tell him that he's who we wanted, because that's the smart thing to do. That's how I look at that situation. Carson Palmer hasn't set the world on fire since he was with Cincinnati. Let's be honest. And when he was
but that's the only reason that's true is that after Cincinnati he went to the Raiders.
Well,
and that's the only team where he's played since he left Cincinnati.
Well, no man is an island, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's glad to be out of Oakland, I'll tell you that much.
And speaking of islands, I mean, I don't think Alcatraz is too far off the coast there, right?
It's true.
Yeah,
Very close.
so maybe
close to Oakland. It's not that close to Phoenix.
Well, no, completely two different parts of the world, I believe.
Certainly.
A lot of desert, a lot of heat. So drink a lot of water while you're down there, Carson. I mean, but
a lot of Gatorade.
I don't know. I said in earlier shows, and I'm not going to go into that whole spiel again, but the Cardinals ruffle my feathers wrong in every way that I think of. Do I like their quarterback? I could take it or leave it. Do I like their running game? I could take it or leave it. Their offensive line? Who? Their defensive line? They're okay sometimes. The biggest high spot on that entire team, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, is Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson is a cornerback that has come up, and he's come up quick. He hasn't been in the league very long, and he's a very good kick returner, and he's given them a lot of advantages, and he's actually been the turning point in a lot of games when he's put them in great field position on his kick returns, or better yet, obviously, scoring a touchdown. And only you, Mickey, I love you, only you would bring this much out of me talking about the Cardinals. I never talked this much about the Cardinals with anybody.
I'm glad you know so much about the Cardinals, Joe. You're bringing up the completion of the knowledge level of our show here.
Thank you.
All right, so if it comes down to it, Cardinals or Rams, point spread is Rams -6.
I agree with you. The Rams, there's no way. They're not going to cover. They're not going to cover the spread on that one.
You heard it here.
It's too much. It's too much, and I agree with him. Hands down.
All right.